Hey everyone, this is Homostar Fan 13 with another Unscripted Ramble, and this one's going to be about wrestling. They said I would maybe do some wrestling videos because some very big wrestling news happened on Tuesday, and I kind of want to say a few things about it. And that is that Cody Rhodes has left AEW, which still doesn't feel real. And even weirder, he might be going back to WWE. We'll get back to that in a minute, but so let's just go over first off, let's go over why this is a big deal. Because AEW is practically started because of Cody Rhodes. If it wasn't for Cody Rhodes, there would be no AEW. So let's just go over how it started off. So I believe it was 2018, around that time, someone on Twitter sent to Dave Meltzer, do you think a company other than WWE could fill out a massive stadium? And Dave Meltzer said, absolutely not. He didn't think that would ever happen. So Cody Rhodes saw this and said, alright, I'll take you up on that offer. And he started All In, which was this massive indie show. I think it was backed by Ring of Honor. It had loads of indie stars there. So we had Kenny Omega was there, Jericho showed up, Pentagon Jr., Kazuchika Okada was the IWGP champion at the time, he was there. The Young Bucks were there, Rey Mysterio was there. So all of these indie talents at the time were there. And it was a massive success. It completely blew away there. It sold out the stadium. Meltzer was happy to lose the bet. And this suddenly started something. Suddenly it began to think, could a new company begin? So Cody, the Bucks, and Kenny Omega, they started something with Tony Khan, who was this massive billionaire. He loves wrestling, got loads of people, he's got Fulham Football Club, or his dad's got Fulham Football Club, something. They collaborated with Tony Khan to start All Elite Wrestling. So yeah, as I'm saying, without Cody, there would be no AEW. So the fact that he is the first person to, the first big person to leave AEW is weird. It just makes no sense. It's so random. We'll get into the reasons why in a minute. But so let's just say how this all started. So on Tuesday, journalists like Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful started reporting that Cody Rhodes might be leaving. And I didn't believe it. I thought that would be so weird. Then a few minutes later, AEW confirmed that Cody and his wife Brandy are both leaving the company. It's funny, it happened whilst I was watching Wrestle Talk. They were live streaming their review of Monday Night Raw. And unsurprisingly, this completely derailed the conversation because this is some of the biggest news we're probably going to get all year. So they started talking about all that. And it's just... So here were apparently some of the reasons why Cody has apparently left. One of the big ones is there was a contract dispute. Apparently, Cody Rhodes and AEW could not come to a decision on his contract because Cody's contract had expired at the end of the year. He had actually been wrestling the last few shows on AEW without a contract, which is weird because they gave him the TNT Championship. Don't know why they did that, which thankfully he dropped it. That would have been embarrassing if he'd left with the belt. But apparently he wanted more money, and since Punk and Bryan Danielson arrived, things had changed. Cody wanted to be paid the same amount that they had been paid, but they didn't. Tony Khan and AEW didn't see Cody on that level anymore. They felt that he was no longer the top guy in the company. They thought he was way down in the company, definitely below Punk and Danielson, probably below Moxley and Hangman Adam Page, all those people. And it's starting to feel that has made Cody annoyed. It feels like he was unhappy that he wasn't one of the top guys anymore. And it also feels like he had fallen out with Tony Khan over something. Apparently there was an article where Tony Khan called himself the GM and the booker, and he sort of made it seem like it was a one-man show. And apparently that ruffled people's feathers, including Cody Rhodes. So it feels like with that, he fell out with Tony Khan, and that's led to him not wanting to return to the company. And going back onto the whole no longer part of one of the top guys, it seemed like he wasn't going to be able to have any booking power anymore. Apparently he was going to lose the booking power. And again, it's all kind of he said, she said at the moment. We don't have a definitive answer. These are just some of the reports that have been coming from journalists like Sean Ross Sapp, think Andrews Area and Dave Meltzer. So we don't know what parts of these are true, whether they're all true. Apparently another thing that's going on is apparently Cody was starting to become a bit of a liability apparently, yeah? And it's starting to feel like, because this was nothing that was reported like years ago, a couple of years ago, like during the pandemic's starting, that apparently Cody had fallen out with the rest of the Elite. So yeah, he had fallen out with the Bucks and maybe Kenny Omega, and he was no longer considering himself as part of the Elite. He had he was no longer even interacting with them on screen anymore, which seemed weird, especially considering that he felt like he was still part of that group. Like he was still interacting with the Bucks, but now it seems ever since the Bucks turned to join Kenny Omega, he just did not interact with them at all. And it also felt like apparently they didn't have like the EVPs. They were the EVPs when it started. They apparently lost a lot of their power recently, and it's just gone all to Tony Khan. Tony Khan is now like running it essentially, and it's now starting to think that maybe people didn't like Cody or something. It was reported that apparently people didn't like Brandy, but now a load of the female superstars have now come out and said that that's not true. People did like Brandy. Although interesting, none of them have spoken about Cody, which seems odd. You think if they're speaking about the Brandy stuff, they would also talk about Cody. So that seems interesting. Maybe there is some truth. Maybe Cody was starting to become unpopular, and that might be one of the reasons why he did leave. Again, this is pure speculation at the moment. We unfortunately don't know the full story. I don't think we're ever going to know the full story unless Cody himself wants to talk about it. But we don't know. But yeah, it seems like Cody was unhappy with his standing in the company now, which I don't know. That makes me feel a little bit like Cody has been a bit selfish here. Like maybe Cody is unhappy that he wasn't being the top guy anymore. And it feels like, so before I continue, I need to bring this up. A lot of people were saying it was a work, which is, for wrestling lingo, is basically people thought it wasn't real, it was part of a storyline. I believed this at first, until I saw people saying that he's going to be joining WWE. When they started saying that, people were reporting that he had already been in talks with WWE. At that point I said this is not a work anymore, because they wouldn't have even gotten to that point if this was a work. And also, Amanda Huber, who is Brody Lee's wife, Brody Lee, who sadly passed away last year and has been working with AEW since, she confirmed on Twitter it is not a work. She very much said it's not a work and that she would not participate in something like this if it was a work. So to me that pretty much confirms it's not a work. Cody has left. It is not part of a storyline. I know people will still try and say it's a work, but I don't think it is. I feel like those people are going to be on the same lines as the Montreal Screwjob saying that was a work. It's not a work. Stop pretending that it is a work. It's not. So anyways, as I was going back to the whole, when it was announced, it was very shocking. And I think one of the reasons it's quite shocking is because he's got two big shows on TNT, which is where AEW airs. It's the Go Big show and his own reality show called Rose to the Top. So Go Big show is like this talent show, kind of like a Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent thing. We don't know anything about that. Apparently his reality show Rose to the Top, that's apparently been, they've said, the reports are going that that's not coming back. That's been cancelled, which makes sense. If he's not going to be part of the TNT network anymore, it would feel weird for him to still have his show there. Maybe it will get put on USA. Maybe they're negotiating a deal with USA. They'll go on the same network as Raw, or some of those channels. Maybe Fox. We don't know. If I was to make a guess about Go Big Show, I would say that show will still happen, but Cody won't be on it anymore. He'll just be replaced. He won't be a judge on it anymore. So that's kind of all the news about Cody. Now let's go over Cody's AEW run, because I think it's been weird. Let's bring on the first big thing, which is the heel turn. The whole thing about him, his whole thing is that he's been a babyface. He didn't want to turn heel. He did not want to turn heel. He wanted to be a babyface. And I and a lot of people have started to think, is this planned? Is this a work? Is this whole Cody being a babyface, not wanting to turn heel, is this part of a storyline? I kind of believe that. I kind of believe that, because there were so many things that was going on with Cody that I'm like, that he has to know. He has to know that people don't like this. He has to be self-aware about this stuff. And same with AEW, I feel like they had to be self-aware about this whole thing. To know that people weren't liking the current stuff, that they didn't like what was going on with Cody and with Brandy. I feel like they had to know. And there were just so many bits in the story where I'm like, they had to know. look, Brandy Rhodes' last segment was terrible. The whole segment with Dan Lambert, where she started it acting like a heel. Like I think she was like in like where she made like a heel comment about like their like rivals in like a sports tournament. I can't remember. I generally don't remember. I don't want to go back and watch that segment because it was terrible. And it's like they were starting something with Paige Van Zandt, which is like this MMA fighter, and it seems weird that they did that, which made me very much believe that this was not planned. This is very much something that they did not expect to happen, because it seemed like they were definitely planning storylines with Cody and Brandy. Like it feels like they were doing a storyline with Cody with Dan Lambert, and with Paige Van Zandt, and I'm sure all the other stuff was going to happen with that. So it seems that very much proves that this was not planned. They were going to do something with Dan Lambert. So, but like going over like Cody's AEW run, it feels like with the whole babyface stuff, with him wanting to be the babyface, the reason why I'm certain that it must have been all leading to a heel turn is that it felt very John Cena, very Roman Reigns, very Hulk Hogan, and like he was the top babyface of the company. That was what he saw himself as, and it felt like that was the complete antithesis of everything AEW stood for. They did not want a John Cena. They did not want a Roman Reigns. They did not want a Hulk Hogan. So it felt weird that Cody Rhodes wanted to be that person, because surely he would have known that the AEW fan base would not like that, and that's why people kept turning on him. And like, it then led to some really weird angles. Like, there was that awful like promo he did with the Anthony Ogogo feud, where the feud was going with GT Marshall, who was part of the Rhodes like group. He left to start his own faction, and that led to Anthony Ogogo. This I think he was a former Olympic boxer for the UK. He played in the Olympics for the UK in boxing. So because of that, because it was like a UK thing, Cody started this really awkward promo where the feud suddenly became America versus England, or America versus Britain, whatever. And it just didn't work. It felt like this feud had come out of nowhere. And again, it felt like it rubbed the AEW audience the wrong way, because it just felt like this is a very WWE storyline. Like, America forever, boo the foreigners and that. Which, that's not AEW. It feels like that has never been AEW. They do not want to do, like, anti-America storylines. It just felt weird. This felt very like a Cody thing. And it felt like this really awkward promo about like how people like joked that it was like, Cody solved racism. And it felt like that, because you have to remember this was like a year after like the whole BLM Black Lives Matter stuff. So it just felt like an awkward promo to do, and like, especially because he then said like, I've got a mixed race daughter and that, and it was like, it just felt really awkward. Again, this is where people kept saying like, Cody solved racism, especially considering that Anthony Ogogo was black. So it felt very weird of him to do this storyline about racism when he's fighting a black man. It just didn't work. And I have seen that Cody did eventually apologise for the promo, realising that it was awkward. But it feels like you should have known that from the start. You should have known from the start that it was going to be weird. I just find it weird that he wouldn't have known that from the beginning. And like, going on from that, his feuds were weird. Like, it seemed like every feud he did, because there are people who've joked about it's been like Cody Island. Like, Cody's feuds were always on its own, like they weren't really connected to anything. And it felt like in his feuds, again, going back to the whole John Cena comparisons, it felt like he had to win every feud. Like, he won the Anthony Ogogo feud, he won the Brody Lee feud. I mean, I'm inclined to give that one a bit of a leeway, because obviously Brody's passing, we don't know if that was going to continue in the future. Because Brody beat Cody for the belt, he destroyed him in a squash match, and then Cody returned to beat him to win the belt back. Even at the time I thought that was a bit odd. But we don't know if that was the case because of Brody's condition, and we don't know if that had something to do with that. And I don't really want to speculate about that too much because of what happened to Brody later. And then he had the feud with Malachi Black, and again, same thing with Malachi Black. He lost convincingly to Malachi Black, but then he came back to the feud, and he won the feud. He then eventually won the last match between the two. And it, again, just goes to go like, because like he had one match with Malachi Black and he lost by cheating because Black like sprayed mist in his face. And then they had a proper feud match, and Cody won clean. And it just, at that time I was just thinking, it was a good match, but I'm just thinking, Cody doesn't need to go over every time. And I'm sure there comes out other feuds, like, I don't really know, like I'm trying to, it seemed like every feud he had to win in the end. Which is why it was thankful that his last feud, at least when he went out, he put Sammy Guevara over. But like, even then, that felt weird. Like, why did Cody win the belt off Guevara? Because then, like, obviously they had to do the... Because Cody then contracted COVID, and then they had to put the belt on Guevara for a bit. And then they had the unification match, and thankfully Guevara won. But again, it just felt weird that Cody won the belt in the first place. So yeah, it just felt like Cody's booking really felt weird. I keep saying weird, but that's the only thing I felt. It was strange. And again, I was hoping that this was going to lead to the heel turn, the eventual heel turn, where this was all going to be planned, and that they knew that this whole booking was going to be bad, and it was going to lead to Cody turning heel. But now I'm starting to think that was never the plan. I'm starting to think that this was the plan. Cody wanted to be the babyface, and that one of the reasons why he's leaving is that he was upset that people were still booing him and that people didn't see him as a top guy anymore. It just seems weird. I keep saying weird, I'm so sorry. But it's the only word I can think of. That it almost feels like Cody maybe has a bit of an ego problem. In that Cody wanted to be the top guy. He wanted to be the John Cena of AEW. But as I stated, AEW doesn't have a John Cena. AEW doesn't need a John Cena. And I almost feel like one of the big problems with WWE over the last few years is they've had to have that John Cena problem, that Roman Reigns type guy, the Hulk Hogan type guy. And I feel like it's refreshing for AEW to not have that guy. Like, people complain about AEW constantly signing new people, and I get that, I definitely get that. But it at least means that guys can have, that wrestlers can take time off, and it doesn't feel like they're losing someone. Like, I don't want this to be a ban for WWE, I've got a whole video about that planned at some point. But say, for example, if Roman Reigns got injured in a match with Goldberg, WrestleMania match is off, WWE won't have any plans now because they've put all their eggs in the Roman Reigns basket. For AEW though, they've got so many like guys that they can realistically have in that spot. Like if, say, Adam Cole gets injured, they've got someone to hopefully take over for the Adam Page storyline. Obviously they've got that big storyline plan, but they'll have someone that they can plug into that storyline and it won't feel weird. But yeah, let's go. I've started mentioning WWE, so let's bring up the other news that was big about this whole thing, which is that apparently the big news is that Cody's left AEW and he's going to WWE. And I have to be honest, that lets me down. I feel a little bit let down by that. I feel a little bit disappointed. I feel not in a betrayal way, not in a way of like, Cody's betrayed AEW and he's betrayed the AEW fans. Not in that way. More in the way of, you know what happened to you when you were there. You know what WWE did to you. And I don't know why you would want to go back there. So yeah, let's give a brief rundown of what happened to Cody and WWE. So it seems like they had big plans for Cody. They had the legacy storyline where he was like with Randy Orton, and then they did the dashing stuff and the undashing stuff. They had plans for him, but it seems like they only ever considered Cody mid-card at best. And then of course, the infamous moment, the Stardust stuff, where he was becoming a version of Goldust. And it feels like Cody didn't like that. Cody had said multiple times to like the company, I want to go back to being Cody Rhodes. I think the Stardust stuff is run as gimmick. I want to go back to Cody. And WWE said no. To the point where they even said that he couldn't be Cody in the video games. I remember, I think 2K once said, we wanted Cody and Stardust in the game, but they said, no, only Stardust. So they were dead set on the Stardust gimmick. And Cody was unhappy with it. He thought he could run his course. He wanted to go back to Cody Rhodes. And that was one of the big reasons why he left. And when he left, he reinvented himself. He was one of those people who reinvented himself outside of WWE and almost showed there is a place for wrestling outside of WWE for the indie scene. So after all that, to then go back to WWE, it does feel like he's let us down a little bit. Because it felt like you were the one who was supposed to be the antithesis of WWE. You were supposed to be the one to be in the indie scene. That's why you started AEW. You wanted to show stuff outside of WWE. So it feels upsetting that you are going back. And I have to be honest, I don't buy that WWE are going to treat him well. I've seen WWE for the last few years absolutely wreck wrestlers. Like, I don't want to go too deep into it because I have a whole video, I said, planned, a whole like unscripted rant about WWE that I want to do one day. And I just feel like, you know what has happened to people. Look at all the people you have signed. You know, Keith Lee, John Moxley, Malachi Black, the Revival, FTR, CM Punk. All of these wrestlers were treated awfully in WWE, and that's why they came to AEW. So it just feels like you're almost spitting in the face of them by now going to WWE. And also, I have two theories as to why they won't treat him well. Because first off, did we all forget the old WCW situation? Did we all forget what happened with WCW, where they signed the WCW guys and then treated them poorly? Like, remember DDP? Remember Sting? Like, DDP, I think, is the biggest example of a WCW guy that they ruined. Like, in WCW, he was the top guy. People love DDP. Comes to WWE, oh, you're Undertaker's stalker now. You're the stalker of the Undertaker's wife. After that, he was treated as a joke, and that was terrible. The other reason why I don't think they'll treat him well is John Morrison. They did not care about John Morrison. Like, John Morrison is another one of those guys who left WWE and he made a name for himself. You know, Johnny Mundo, Johnny Impact, Lucha Underground, Impact Wrestling. He became a star. He became their top star. He was their main guy. Comes back to WWE. Sorry, you're Mrs. Midcard's flunky now. You're Mrs. Midcard guy. And that feels like all the work John Morrison did outside of WWE doesn't matter anymore. In WWE, you were mid-card, you're staying as a mid-card. And because of that, they never gave him a chance. They never gave John Morrison a chance. Which is a shame, because he could have been a main eventer there, but they were like, no, you're mid-card, and now he's gone again. So, like, what a waste of a return run for John Morrison. And it wouldn't surprise me if that happened to Cody Rhodes, that they'll say, you were mid-card for us, so you're mid-card again. They have apparently planned him, like, they've said, oh no, we're going to give you a main roster run, we're going to give you a main championship run, you're going to have a match at Mania. But how much longer is that going to last? How much longer is that going to last until Cody is just another one of the guys? Which is surely the reason why he left AEW, because he didn't want to be another one of the guys, he wanted to be the top guy. So, if you want to be a top guy, why are you going to WWE? You will not be a top guy in WWE. You will not be a top guy in WWE. WWE only care about 4 people. They care about Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, Ronda Rousey, and Charlotte Flair. Those are the only people they care about. I don't want to go on a rant, but all I will say is, if he goes to WWE and is treated like a mid-card jobber in like a few months, I will have no sympathy for him. I know that feels bad, but I will have no sympathy for him. And look, if he wants to go back, if he's happy with the money and that, fair enough. Fair enough, if he's happy, then he can be happy, he can do what he wants, but if he then wants to like call him back, I almost feel like we shouldn't let him, because he should have. I don't want to feel like I'm hating on Cody here. Obviously he's got his own life, he's got a new child, so obviously that might be one of the main reasons he wants to get more money. But I just feel like he would be a lot better in AEW than in WWE. They would treat him better there. And I feel like more stuff has happened behind the scenes. So yeah, that's it. It might have been more over the place than the other video. There was a lot more of like a random structure to this one than the Nintendo one, but I just want to make some thoughts on this. So let me know what you think about the Cody Rhodes situation. You know, put in the comments there. Like this if you like the video. Remember to subscribe to see more content. And yeah, I'll hopefully see you next time. Thanks for watching.